I finished third place in the Pokemon TCG rankings in the 2024-2025 Pokemon TCG season. My name is Rahul Reddy, and today we're going to be looking at my season as a recap. What's up, guys? Thank you for supporting me this entire time. This will be the wrap up of our season. We're going to look at all the tournaments I played, the decks I kind of played, kind of go through a walk on memory lane. And the biggest and most important thing is the financial decisions I made, how much I actually spent on my tournament experiences this season, what my return was, and what my profit was on top of everything. I'm going to kind of explain how some of them were cheaper than others, why some of them were more expensive. Um, Basically being like, did I make this a bit of a vacation? Did I spend a little bit extra on flights? Did I use credit card points? Did I use all these cool things? Now I do know that if you guys are avid credit card point users, currently it's a grim time because of all our credit cards getting nerfed in a pretty big capacity. But you can still make a lot happen if you are a avid traveler like myself and who is competing on the circuit, because a lot of it is, if you're just paying your bills and doing your stuff, it will pay for itself and get to regionals. So without further ado, let's jump into my season. So let's just look at the totals to kick us off. I maxed out on challenges and cups, and for regionals and ICs I had 1,305 points, putting me at 1,565 points, which puts me in third for North America. Now, there was 7 league challenges that I ended up playing. I chose to try to front load them as quickly as possible, as you can see here. Basically, like the first 2 weeks that challenges were available to us, I went and won a challenge almost immediately with Gardevoir. Yes, there was only 5 players in attendance to challenges, but uh, guys, believe me, cups and challenges, like, it doesn't matter how many people there are. There's no glory in winning a 100-person challenge versus like winning a 10-person challenge. Like, I'm going to give you your flowers if you do win a 100-person cup, and I'm going to be very like proud of you, and like it'll be very impressive. But at the end of the day, like, I'd rather put in like less effort and win like a couple challenge, because for the most part they eat up a whole weekend day. For challenges, they don't actually eat up like a whole weekend day. Like, most of them are sometimes on weekdays as well. Like, I try to go to the weekdays ones after work, that I can go to before the gym, or like just knock them out of the park because it's just best of one. We'll get them done in a couple hours and get out of there. But for me, they're kind of tedious. I really enjoy playing Pokemon, but when I'm forced to kind of be there and give up my whole Saturday, or a Sunday on the few weekends I am home from travel, it feels a little bit tedious, um, and a little bit annoying, frankly. But obviously, part of the circuit, I didn't need to do them. But at the beginning of the season, I'm going to once again, once July kicks off, I'm going to take a look at the challenges and cups around me, and I will be beginning as soon as possible as well, just because I want to stay warm for the World Championships. I want to be ready to go. I might be playing some fun decks you guys don't know. But anyway, my first challenge win was a 3-round challenge that I won, earning myself 15 championship points with Gardevoir. Took that same Gardevoir deck to Curio a week later, or a couple days later on a weekday, and won a 26-person challenge, winning myself 15 points again. Then I went to a different challenge, went 0-2 to start the day, but fortunately there was another challenge on that day. That's the beauty of challenges. Almost every store will have challenges at some point in time, weekday or weekend, and they're held every month, so you don't have to like really beat yourself up over an 0-2. In fact, I'd rather go 0-2 than go 4-1 and be upset about getting second. So I ended up going straight home for a little bit, and then I went to a different challenge in the evening. I went 5-0 out of a 30-person challenge and getting 15 points as well. And then I went to a different challenge that was a BO3 challenge, and I took Block Snorlax. I didn't know it was BO3 till I got there, so if I knew that, I probably wouldn't have brought Snorlax, I remember. And I ended up getting second, but I had also planned this one out so I could go to the challenge in the morning and go to a different challenge in the evening. And I was like, if I win the morning challenge, that would be my 4th win. I'm done for the season, which is crazy to think about as soon as July 14th, but I just wanted to get them done as quickly as possible. But I got second on tiebreakers, pure tiebreakers, because I didn't lose anything. And then I went to the challenge in the evening and went 3-1. I thought I was never not winning after I lost my last round. I was like the only 3-0, I think, going into the last round. I got absolutely like beaten up. And then I won. I was like, oh, cool. Wasn't surprised. And then I didn't play a challenge up till Jan 30th, but I ended up going to basically see some of my locals, give some cards, borrow some cards and stuff for the future. And I don't just like, I don't, I kind of just enjoy playing Pokemon, like I said. So like when there was nothing on the line and it was like a Thursday night challenge, I decided to just pull up and play. And I believe the one round I did lose was conceding to a friend, who needed the points. I thought it was a funny little bit to play Reggie Drago right before like it kind of rotated or stopped being good. So I just brought that and played it for fun. Anyway, cups are the follow-up thing. Cups are one that's a little bit more difficult. There's one per quarter per store. These are a little bit more difficult to work with and find across the board. And there's more on the line. There's a top cut at the end of Swiss rounds. You are basically putting yourself in a position where you need to win the whole tournament to earn 50 points. That full 50 points can be quite helpful in your pursuit of the future. The first four cups that I played in the season, I played two before Worlds and two right after Worlds. I didn't. I won very few rounds. I got absolutely like 2-2, 2-3, 0-2, 1-2. Like I had a lot of early exits. I remember these two, the two that happened like right after Worlds. Like I literally just come home from Hawaii, and I like don't know why I went to these two cups. Um, and I genuinely like didn't want to be there. And like as soon as I went 0-2, I was like, cool, I'm gonna go home and sleep. That's exactly what I did. So like I probably should have like told myself I don't need to go to these things, because there's so many across the year. But in my mind, it's also like I'm wasting a weekend. It's a lot of like FOMO that I have, that I need to work on, which is what ends up making me go to a bunch of stuff that I don't think I need to go to. Then I ended up going to a cup on September 7th, where I ended up winning with Roaring Moon. This is the week before Baltimore, I believe, and then Baltimore was the week after. And then I ended up coming back from Dortmund, I think I want to say, like my Baltimore into Dortmund run or whatever, or like between Baltimore and Dortmund. I won a cup with Lugia. At this point, I'm just like full committing to Lugia. And then I took Gigas to a fun cup to see if I could make Reggie Gigas work, and I ended up getting top four at this cup as well, which was super awesome. And some of these cups also like once you have like 22 players, like a top eight gets procced, so it's like that is actually getting the top eight is like the biggest challenge, and then once you're in there, it's just like the correct matchups and everything has to fall your way. And then I went to Gamer Core where I played Ancient Box. I remember this was just like a meta call, and it ended up working out in my favor, which is a deck that I wanted to try out, and it was a pretty good deck. And then I went down to play Dragapult. As soon as like rotation and cards were legal. Very similarly, once black and white cards are probably legal, I'll try to play a couple challenges or cups before I head off to the World Championships, just to kind of get a feel for how the games are playing out and how what people are thinking deck wise. And then I had my four cups done, but I ended up going to a different cup the day after because I already kind of committed to coming out and hanging out with friends. And I remember conceding my top four because I didn't need the points or anything. I just wanted to go to get Korean barbecue after the tournament with all my friends, and the locals, because like I still like showing up, like I said. But keep in mind, like look, even a player like me can have four straight cup O2s, and there's a pretty good chance that'll happen again. I suck at best of one, like it will happen, and best of one is a fickle beast. Then we have regionals here across the board. I think my season was pretty solid. I don't think like obviously starting off the season with a top eight and a second place is nothing to be embarrassed at. 2,300 players, 1,800 players, two incredible placements. And then I went into Louisville where I hit two Thorns. I remember getting 101 out of 80. This puts me at 80 points more on the board. Gdansk was the one where I had like a lot of flight travels, and then my two matchups to start the day were pretty bad. So I just knew that weekend was cursed. Brazil, I started 8-2, meaning that I could have still had a chance to make top eight at this international or the asymmetric cut. But losing to Isaiah and then double breaking my last round put me in a position where I was also out of the cash. And then Sacramento is where I kind of had like a little bit of an identity crisis with my deck. Tried this Charizard deck out, walked face first into Snorlax, missed day two. And then I went to Germany where I played this cool cloth deck, starting off 6-0, but then having a pretty bad back half of games. So I had a pretty bad stretch of tournaments, per my own standards, obviously, where I missed not only top cut, but I also missed cash for a lot of tournaments, which is I think a good metric and indicator for myself as a top player that I want to expect to have at least like some rate of return on these. Now they did up the pricing and there was a lot of booster boxes given out. So like at the end of the day, I'm still walking home with like I think a booster box for all these placements, which is pretty nice. Like those booster boxes have gotten quite expensive. But yeah. Then I was out in Perth where like at this point I just went back to my good old faithful Lugia, locked in a top 16 finish. I remember I had the option to um, ID into asymmetric cut here, but my opponent was was a Thorns, and I just immediately lost. I played Lugia again in Toronto. I chose to play it out at 6-2, and I got absolutely bodied, missing a day two once again. And then I played Lugia in Birmingham. I'm having a bad slew of matchups and a little bit of bad luck once again, missing another day two in a row. Now I guarantee that I probably should have probably stopped playing Lugia at some point in this stretch of tournaments, just because Lugia had like kind of gone past its heyday. And Reggie Drago was effectively dominating the format at this point. So I should have probably stopped being as stubborn as I was and pivoted to playing like Reggie Drago or playing a better deck in this format. But I was super stubborn that like I could still make something happen with Lugia. And then I took it to San Antonio the week after, losing the round before my winning in, and then finishing 33rd, which was a blow because I did miss cash by one placement, purely on tiebreakers. And the week after, or a couple weeks later, I ended up going to the United Kingdom to play Goldengo, getting top 32 there out of 3,300 something players, losing my win in the top eight or asymmetric cut, which was also which was like, yeah. And then it was a month break until Stockholm, where I had a full identity crisis. Played this Dragapult Dustnor deck. Should have played the same 60 as Isaiah, who ended up winning the tournament at this one. And then this deck was okay at best, and I just like didn't really feel comfortable. This is one of those tournaments where like I just really didn't want to play. I just kind of wanted to go explore. Um, and that'll happen sometimes. Like you won't have the best days. And mental is something I had to work on as well. The last stretch of the season was actually quite good for me. Where then I went to Brisbane, got top four with Gardevoir. Um, then I went top 64, top 64, top 64, three times in a row as a top 64 demon. In Atlanta, I lost my win in the last round. If I won that one, I got top 16. In Monterey, I lost to Raging Bolt. If I win that one in the last round, I also get top 32 money, I'm pretty sure. And then in Milwaukee, I got 33rd with Terrabox, which if I had just bubbled in, I would have gotten cash. Again, a lot of woulda, shoulda, couldas. And then at the in New Orleans, I ended up getting top 32 as well with Gardevoir, putting up a lot more points on the board. But I'm becoming a modicum of consistency in this point in time. But once again, missing a lot of cash. So the real thing you guys are here for is the money. What did I earn on the season? Now I color coded it here: yellow being challenges, green being cups, blue being regionals, and ICs being purple. I did not include the Champions Leagues I participated in because that was a cost that I think I chose to bear by myself. Some of the costs are baked in here into the schedule, where I had to pay a little bit more of an expensive flight to do some sort of like around the world trip where I coupled up a regionals and a Champions League. So I kind of did bake in the cost a little bit, but I also decided that that cost is something that I chose to absorb as a life experience. So it's not a part of my season necessarily. That's just something I chose to do, and it didn't affect my World Championship invite. So it's not something I'm going to be putting in here. However, some of them are a little bit more expensive, like I said, because of the travel. A lot of the entry costs for my challenges were actually pretty steep. Like I used to remember challenges being like $5, but it looks like most of my challenges were on average $10 an entry. Some of them give out some really good pricing, like a ton of store credit here. But for the most part, the challenges were pretty depressing in pricing. Just a couple of prize packs and be told on your way. I think that's a system. That's like a problem with the system. Like prize packs should not be the only pricing. Stores should be required to give out some sort of store credit or something. But again, Pokemon has a hard time policing all of that, and prize packs are a great solution to keep leagues flowing and players coming in. The first four cups I played all did not go well for me. No extra prizing, nothing for me. About $25 entry on average. The cup I won ended up winning. I got just $113 in raw store credit, which is like pretty good for $30 entry. Granted, there was only like 9 players there. Baltimore Regionals is the first tournament that I played. I put in the cost for the drive simply because I paid for parking. And I didn't get a hotel, so I had to pay for parking in the garage. I had to pay for a tank of gas, basically. Like I don't really count the tank of gas because that's just me being stupid. I drove back and forth for no reason from home. I could have just gotten a hotel. It was like an hour and a half. That's entirely on me. But then I got $3,000 in cash pricing and then 3 boxes of Stellar Crown. I didn't put any monetary value for the boxes, by the way. That's just going to be something that is there. I'm gonna turn off my face cam. I'll turn it off when I get to the final number. But I don't think you guys need to like sit there and like reevaluate like box value or whatever, because like I think that's just we're going too deep into the woods at that point. I won a $5 League Cup and I got a UPC of 151, which was actually pretty hype. Um, like I didn't expect this, but I was like, oh, sick, cool. So I opened it. I actually opened it. It was pretty sick. I said, why not? This seems kind of fun. For $5, didn't expect anything. Got this, pretty cool. Then Dortmund entry was a little bit lower because it's in euros. My flight was about $530. Pretty reasonably cheap round trip. I am East Coast based in the Washington D.C. area, so my flights to European regionals are pretty comparable to ones to go to the West Coast for me. So a lot of the time I'll like kind of look into it, and if I can find a pretty decent Thursday night flight that'll get me into Europe like midday Friday, being able to play, and then flying home like Sunday night or like early Monday morning, I will kind of take those flights because it's a little bit of an experience as well because I get to kind of explore if I do bad versus like a lot of the U.S. cities that I've already been to. So Dortmund was one that I went to, got in pretty late on Friday, played the tournament. My hotel was split amongst 3 of us, I believe. $7,000 for second place and 3 more boxes of Stellar Crown. Louisville was coming up after that. My flight was about $320. Don't really know why it was so expensive to get to Louisville. This shouldn't have been a pretty cheap trip, all things considered. I might have I feel like maybe I just like opted to pay for like a better timing, because I think I had to come after work due to something work related. But I'm pretty sure there was cheaper flights and options. But I'm also in the phase of my life where unless the price change is so significant, I will be sticking to flying to one airline to build status. That's something you guys should be looking into as well if you have the means. If you don't have the means and you're just playing on pure budget, book whatever's cheapest, do your thing. Don't let me get in your way. But I fly United primarily because it is a hub out of the Dulles Airport, which is my closest airport. And so I try to pay a little bit extra if I have to fly United or Star Alliance specifically to continue to build up my status because I'm a bigger guy. If you guys didn't know, I'm like 6'2", 6'3". So getting that extra leg room and those upgrades on those longer flights is quite important to me. And then I get lounge access when I go on international trips. So that also covers like a ton of food expenses as I'm traveling because you guys know that airport tax does exist, and it is quite steep. When you're trying to buy like a bottle of water, it's like $6, and you're like, oh, cool, sick. Like, why don't you just take all my clothes too? Um, but that one, the accommodation was pretty reasonable. I remember we only had like 3 people, I think. This season, I kind of also for hotels, I try to stay at Marriott specifically if I can. When I go to European regionals, it's a little bit more difficult because they don't have those big chains very easily available to um, the proximity. So for some European regionals, I'll just take whatever's cheapest and closest. But for most American regionals, I try to book Marriott specifically, so I can get the points in that regard as well, and the statuses and et cetera, et cetera. Like I'm in my era of like building statuses and building like that kind of stuff. But this one was a top 128 finish, I remember, so I got the box of Star Crown once again. I went to Gdansk. This one was actually a really expensive flight, so I'm really sad that I did as bad as I did because I went to Gdansk for like $900. Like I went the year before. I really enjoyed the city. I wanted to go to some Christmas markets. I wanted to do a lot of like exploring. I got to do a lot of exploring on Sunday because I did in day two. Um, but it was just like it was a pretty big bummer because like I basically spent like almost $1,000 in travel and hotel to get there, and I basically went 2-3 drop, which will happen. It'll happen, but like it was just a pretty like big blow because my other regionals were a little bit inexpensive, and then this one was a little bit steep. And then LAIC came around, and I usually like to pay a little bit extra to um, go nonstop, which is exactly what I did. I opted to pay for a nonstop flight to get down to Brazil, played the tournament. My hotel was pretty expensive. 350 is pretty steep for Brazil standards, but the reason we did that is because we always get like I always like to show up on Wednesday for an international. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's 5 nights. So for 5 nights, 350 is a pretty reasonable amount of money to spend on a hotel, especially considering like the your options for rooms are either a 2-person room or like a 5-person family room, and we did the 5-person family room, so we paid a little bit of extra money to basically put ourselves in a spot. Also for LAIC, the baked in cost here is that I went to Rio ahead of time for a couple days. So between I threw that cost in here because I think it is relevant to have the fact that I went like from Washington to Rio, spent a couple days in Rio, then Rio to Sao Paulo, then Sao Paulo home, and then I also had like the hotels baked into there. So for everything combined, I'm pretty sure that was the cost here because it's a little bit steeper than I typically do pay. And I once again missed cash here, so no cash additional pricing here. $2,000 in Portuguese surging Sparks boxes. I brought these home to open. You can usually sell them in the venue. People will be buying them like as soon as you pick them up. But yeah, then I went to Sacramento, and this one I like. Remember, I went to Sac and I went home after. I'm pretty sure. Um, and this is like when I had like my chain of like events in a row where I went Sacramento home. Um, and then I booked like, and this was like a pretty cheap flight. Like I remember going like pretty early, just to see like some friends. My comm was pretty cheap. Played the tournaments. I flew into SF as opposed to flying into a different airport. And depending on time of year, you can fly pretty cheap. Like I think this was Thanksgiving weekend, so I think I coupled this up with. Okay, I remember what I did. I coupled this up with LAIC. So I left LAIC instead of coming straight home. I went to San Francisco. So I went to San Francisco and I spent Thanksgiving week with my friends from high school that I know very very well. Like one of my best friends lives out there, so I stayed with him and his wife for the week. And I work from home, so I was able to work remotely. So that's why the cost was so cheap because I only really had to pay for a one-way home. Then I got home, and then I went from home, and this is where I did like some cool stuff with points. Also, again, Sacramento sucked. I didn't get anything. I didn't make day two. This is where I kind of get to do some cool stuff with points, where I was able to couple together a round the world trip where for I believe 300 something dollars and like 80,000 or 90,000 in points, you should take United points, just chop off a zero, and that's how many dollars it probably costed. Um, so for 9,000 points or 90,000 points, sorry, that's like $900 that you're spending. In that regard, or like chop off two zeros, sorry. But so like I'm basically spending like $900 on flights to go to Stuttgart, Perth, and come home. And in the process, I had a layover in Japan for 2 full days. And this way, I got to like actually explore Stuttgart because it's the place I wanted to go. Actually spend some time there, check out the Christmas markets, all that cool stuff. And then from there, I could go check out Perth, um, as well. Go play that regionals, spend some time with my Aussie friends, and head home in the process. And I was able to do all of that for pretty cheap, which is why I have a $0 here for Perth. I picked up 3 boxes of Stellar Crown on the way home. Accommodation was a little bit expensive in Perth, um, simply because I was directly next to the venue and I booked pretty late for a hotel. I kind of just like leave it up to Brent when I go to Australian regionals, and Brent told me, "Hey, this is what we're doing," and I said, "Cool, I believe you." Um, but I picked up $2,000 there as well. And then I went to Toronto. I don't really know why Toronto was so expensive because it's like an 8 hour drive, but I'm just gonna go ahead and fly. But between that and the hotel, it was really expensive for the weekend. Toronto's an expensive city. I did quite bad. I got 9 packs though. I got 9 packs though. Um, then I had the 2 cups that I played to kind of try to wrap up my cup finishes in the month of December. Just a couple of prize packs handed out to me. No cash prizing for my entry fee, which is fine. I'll take some prize packs and I'll go home. Again, would have liked to see some more actual additional pricing, but this is fun. Then I went to Birmingham. Another one that was really, really, really expensive. This was my birthday regionals. That's kind of, I think, why I went. Quite expensive to get to Birmingham. Quite expensive to be there. Quite expensive for food, I remember as well. But the end result was a pretty middling finish. Now, granted, like if I just don't do this fight in like Gdansk, for example, I have 2,000 more dollars on the season. But it's again a risk that I chose to take willingly. Then San Antonio was next up in the books. San Antonio, I was able to go pretty reasonably, just pretty reasonable flight, direct flight from Dulles. Accommodation was pretty reasonable. I split it a couple ways with friends, played it out. Won, picked up a box, go from there. Played the challenge, got some store credit. Wasn't really expecting anything, but I got some store credit for this challenge. Then I played 2 more cups here. Pretty reasonable pricing as well. The Your Hobby Place one was a great pricing for $25 entry. I got $50 back, and I got a prismatic ETB plus some packs. If you guys know, prismatic ETBs are now very expensive. I chose to open mine because it was a. I mean, you don't have to always open yours. You can just put aside. But at this point, I hadn't gotten any prismatic product, so I was pretty excited to open up a box and just like check it out. The Paradise Cup also $55 store credit, pretty reasonable. Um, then I went to EUIC, and this is where I coupled like EUIC plus the Champions League a little bit because I remember like my flight home from EUIC was I booked it on points. I booked my flight home on like 40,000 points, but it was like home to Japan to play in the Champions League, Japan to London, London to home. My cost was about $720. Now, London is also a little bit more expensive than most places, so I was already expecting the hotel cost to be pretty steep, and it's exactly what happened. Like the hotel cost was pretty steep, um, and I ended up paying like a pretty high premium to be in London. Um, but on the caveat, I had a travel award to attend the tournament, meaning for being in the top 4 of the previous ranking quarter, I got $3,500 for the next ranking quarter, which was quite beneficial to me because this basically said that like whatever I want at the tournament is moot. I basically have like a positive no matter what I do on the weekend, which is a good like feeling to go in. And then I picked up $3,000 with the top 32 finish, putting myself at a $6,500 profit on the weekend, or like not profit, but like yeah, and 2 boxes. And then I went to Stockholm. Well, once again, I completely did terrible. And I paid quite a bit of money to get to Stockholm as well. You can see here the $8,000. This one was a round the world trip that I did that was not necessarily the cheapest because I did Stockholm to Brisbane, Brisbane to Japan, Japan to home. And so the cost of that all is baked into this. So that was about a $2,000 trip. I couldn't really find anything fun to do flight wise or like any deals or anything. I just really wanted to do this. Like, I think that I had Stockholm, Brisbane lined up to then coming home. And then it cost me quite a pretty penny to add Japan into the equation. Now, do I regret it? Absolutely not. I think the experience was fantastic. Was I exhausted afterwards? Yes. This was probably the most exhausting string of tournaments that I ended up playing. and I wish I had taken a little bit of a break, like especially like doing poorly in Stockholm. It was kind of depressing, and then I went into um, Brisbane where I did top four, so I did pick up $5,000 to recoup a lot of that cost, and I did have a lot of Marriott points. So with Marriott, one of the things you can do too is if you like book on award travel or points, your fifth night is always free when you book four. And so I found like a super good hotel like downtown, and like you rarely will find these like broken amazing deals. I found like a really good deal where I was able to use like a ton of points um, to get something that was like 15-minute walk from the venue, central downtown. Gave me a ton of time to go explore in Brisbane. Like I got there Wednesday, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I spent exploring and getting to see a new city. Pretty much knew what I was gonna play. I spent a lot of time in Stockholm exploring as well. Like I was able to like get these experiences by just being there, which was really awesome. And then I got to go to Japan pretty early and go to Miyagi, which was really cool. And then I got home from that, and then I went to Atlanta. Atlanta, a pretty easy flight. Once again, I probably could have gone cheaper if I flew Delta, but I chose to fly United. And then uh, played at that tournament, got a box, nothing too crazy. Then I went to Monterey. I don't have a hotel cost here because I don't actually remember what I paid, but I want to say it was like $80, so I'll just put that in. Um, like I don't think I paid too much of my share in the quarter of the room, but Monterey was a really cheap flight. I actually used points to help myself out to get there. This is just the taxes that I paid effectively. And on the way there, my sister lives in Texas, so I was able to spend some time with my sister as well. So it kind of became a two for one. This is a trip that I chose. I almost chose to cancel simply because this is the end of my like 5 straight weeks of tournaments, and I like simply was exhausted. If I wasn't seeing my sister, I probably would have canceled this. Again, poor performance on my part. I remember I felt quite sick during the tournament as well. Came back, went to Milwaukee. Rather than flying into Milwaukee, I flew into Chicago and got a ride. You can also take trains. There's like an Amtrak that takes you up there for just a few bucks. So I went up to Milwaukee, a relatively cheap location. Ended up picking up a box of journeys together. Again, the bubble here and the bubble in San Antonio do hurt quite a bit because that's $2,000 that's off my overall um, like record. And then Portland was a little bit more of a steep flight going to the West Coast. Like I said, is about a little bit over $500 every single time. Unless I'm flying into like SF or LA and I get some pretty cheap deals or Denver or something. But I ended up going to Portland for $500 plus. The hotel was pretty cheap, and I was able to walk out with $1,000, which was pretty awesome. Then New Orleans was a pretty inexpensive flight. Once again, 320. Um, I think flying direct is like again the better option. I think for the times that I needed, I had to pay a little bit extra, so this was not a big deal for me. And then the hotel was again for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so 5 nights, $300. That's super reasonable. Um, yeah, and I think the Sunday night I was the only one there, so I ate the whole cost by myself, um, which is fine. Like I didn't expect. We also had like a fourth member that was supposed to be in our room, and they ended up not being able to come due to some family circumstances. So the cost got a little bit higher for me, but again, I'm at the age where it doesn't matter for me. I don't mind covering it. But again, the $3,000. I also had a travel stipend, and so the stipend is $1,000 as opposed to $3,000, 500. Sorry, so I get $1,000 to attend an AIC as well, which was quite good. And so moving into Worlds, I also get $2,000 in terms of travel award, which is going to benefit me. So regardless of what happens at Worlds, I'll be getting $2,000 to be there and compete. And for Anaheim, I chose to fly directly into John Wayne Airport instead of LAX because LAX is like $300. John Wayne was like 517. I get plopped out 5 minutes away from the venue versus an hour and some change, and I have to get out of LA, either rent a car or get an Uber, and even that'll be like a very pricey amount. So I just figured I'd do this out of the easy convenience for myself. And for hotel, I haven't like obviously done the split and everything yet, depending on who's coming, who's not coming. A lot of people are just locking up their invites now, but a lot of boxes picked up in the last couple tournaments. So if whatever you guys want to value those boxes at, let's just say 200 a piece, quite a bit of money. And so my overall spending for the season was about an entry cost of about $1,500 and 17 or $1,517 in travel, about $9,000, $545. Again, the two expensive regionals I didn't have to do could have been made a little bit cheaper. The not doing the Champions League could have also docked another 1,000. So realistically, I could have probably only done this with like 6,500 or a little bit less. But I opted to do these three like voluntary tournaments that seemed quite cool to do, and I'll probably do something like that again this year just because like I'm here for a good time, not a long time, you know. Um, and then for accommodation it was about $4,000, give or take. I expect that cost to be pretty much the same moving forward. Like I think every tournament I go to, I expect to spend about $200 to $300 in hotels every single time. Um, and then my winnings for the season were $30,000, 932, putting my grand total at $16,000 positive on the season. Now this doesn't include content, coaching, and all the other stuff that come in. And so I do thank you guys greatly for using my affiliate links, supporting my coaching, supporting my content, because that is something that facilitates my travel and helps out quite a bit. I have big announcements that are coming up in the future. I hope you guys stay tuned for those. Sorry I dragged on so long, but that's what I already have for this season. And as you can see in the tab here, I already have next season's coaching tracker or cost tracker ready to go. So that is the 2025 season in a nutshell. Thank you guys for watching. I mean, like looking at last season, like we were definitely more positive than last season, but we made most of our money at Worlds last year. So um, I still have the World Championships to try and pick up some cash here. So hopefully we can close out the season with a strong finish at the World Championships. There's more money to be made, a lot of fun to be done, and thank you guys for watching as always. Peace out.